Hello everyone, welcome back into another episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. I'll be one of your hosts, Ethan Spozarski. I'll be joined shortly by Benicio DeFalco. And then today, continuing to break down the spring sports for Waynesburg Athletics. We have outdoor track and field, then our baseball and softball coverage as well. But you don't want to go anywhere. Great insight coming up here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Welcome to Jacket Sports Weekly, Waynesburg University's weekly sports show where we cover the best of the best in athletics. Our analysts discuss a multitude of highlight plays such as touchdown passes.
And Barber's going to throw again, one-on-one. Does he got it in him? That's a catch! Tyler Richmond with flags thrown everywhere makes the catch! Touchdown, Waynesburg!
And ones.
This was low, Waynesburg's going to get it! Suggs is going to pull away here, go for the layup, and it's going to fall in and one! P.J. Suggs!
And home runs.
Higgins drives one to left field. The left fielder running back, and that ball is out of here. Grace Higgins.
Join us every Wednesday to see what's new in Waynesburg University athletics.
Hello and welcome back into JSW's. Now we're ready to sit down and talk with Michael McKenzie for some outdoor track and field action. Michael, what's the word, Hummingbird?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Let's find out indeed. All right, getting right into
fair.
it. First outdoor meet of the season has been concluded. On the men's side first, talk to us about maybe some of the top finishers in there.
Yeah, number of top 10 finishers in this event. Just for a little overview, the Marty Pushkin Invitational was Division I, Division II, and Division III NCAA athletes, runners, or throwers, whatever event you're participating in. So this is a lot of competition, healthy competition for this team in their first outdoor meet. A lot of top 10 finishers for Waynesburg, starting off with the name we talk about pretty much every single week. Quentin Weaver finished 7th overall in the 1500 with the 5th fastest time in team history, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. It was the best finish among Division III athletes. Jacob Harker had a number of top 10 finishes. He finished 5th overall with the 4th farthest shot put in team history. I know we're on record watch with Jacob Harker. He broke the indoor record. We're on record watch for the outdoor. Already the 4th farthest shot put in team history at 14.27 meters. Also finished 2nd in the hammer throw in program history, 2nd farthest hammer throw in program history at 37.26 meters, and the 9th in the event in the discus throw at 40.19. Noah Jones finished 5th in the long jump at 5.97 meters. That was the best finish among Division III athletes. Kyle Casella, 5th in the 400-meter hurdles. That was also the best among Division III athletes. John Stewart and Ryan Zawislak, they finished it just inside the top 10 in discus throw. A personal record for Zawislak at 36.86 meters. Those were all the top 10 finishers for the men.
So we talked about the top finishers on the men's side of things. Now shifting over to the women, what were some of the top finishers on their aspect?
This list is just as long as the men, if not a little bit longer for the women. Maggie Clare up first, finished 5th in the shot put, 11.35 meters on her throw. Natalie Double 5th in the javelin throw at 34.66 meters. Meg Berry at 8th in the javelin throw. So 2 top 10 finishes for the team in javelin. Berry finishing at 8th, 33.68 meters was her throw. Ella Rochelle finished 10th in the long jump. 4.57 meters was her jump, and 11th in the 200 at 28.39 seconds. Both of those were top 3 finishes among Division III athletes. Reagan Pettis, 10th in the 1500-meter steeplechase, 6 minute 26.71 second time for Pettis. And then Riley Baker, the number 2 hammer throw in team history at 29.39 meters. That was just outside the top 10 for the event, but again, 2nd in program history. A lot of top 10 finishes, and then Baker rounding it out with a very high finish in team history. So again, the list for the women, just as long as the men, both the men and the women showing out for the first meet, especially against the healthy competition that we mentioned.
So I had this conversation with Ella Rochelle and Kyle Casella when they were up here we were doing our athlete interviews, and I alluded to, is there a big difference from outdoor to indoor? Because the coaching staff is pretty much the same, and a lot of the athletes are returners and do both indoor and outdoor. Kind of see indoor as kind of a pregame warm-up to outdoor, to what really is what they're all looking forward to. For you as the analyst here, do you think there's a lot of difference when competing in these meets for indoor to outdoor, primarily being the weather, which what we saw over the weekend was gloomy, not pretty, it was pretty bad?
Listen, I want to give some sort of profound analysis that it's not just the weather, it's this, and that. I can't, though, because the only difference I can really see is the thing that we saw over the weekend. Anybody here in Waynesburg or over in Morgantown can attest to this, as did some of the athletes that we're hearing say it was the weather. That's really the big difference, and almost the only difference. Really cold, really windy this weekend, which The weather the past 2 weeks hadn't been that off. I said last week I didn't think the weather was going to be that much of a factor. I thought it was going to be fine this weekend. That's why I'm not a meteorologist. That's why I'm a track and field analyst here on JSW. It was windy. It was cold. It was tough for these athletes to stay out in these conditions. You got to bundle up. You got to keep your body warm. You got to stay in shape, in condition to run. That may have forced some lower times. We did see a few personal bests, a few high finishes in program history. That's not saying every athlete was off their game because of the weather, but some athletes were off their game because of the weather. You know, you got to do extra to stay warm, stay in shape, stay in condition to run or throw or whatever your event may be. And it did have an effect on the athletes because the athletes are saying it. I've heard multiple people say that some of the track and field athletes that competed said the weather was a big issue, trying to stay warm, the windy, the cold conditions. So that is a big difference. That's the obvious difference. Otherwise, it's the same dimensions of the track. It's the same pit you're jumping into in the long jump or the javelin throw you're throwing to the same field. Everything else is pretty much the same. The weather is really the only difference moving from indoor to outdoor. So I really can't give more profound analysis other than what we saw with the weather.
So first meet of the season being the outdoor season, since it's just getting started, they went against all divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, and they placed top 10 in meet finishes and then also program finishes. How important is it to start the season like that?
I mean, that's awesome because you get to put yourself up against Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 athletes. Like you said, it's a good measuring stick to see where you guys are, especially at the beginning of the outdoor season. Now, I talked about it for a couple of weeks. The time from indoor to outdoor, it's just a matter of how these athletes manage that, how they condition their bodies. Do they take a little bit of time off? Do they try to stay in season shape, in season workouts? That was really the big thing I was looking for. And all these top 10 finishes, top 5 finishes, it seems like everybody did what was best for them. Every athlete did what was best for their bodies, what was best for their minds to move from indoor to outdoor to cover that time from PAC championships and indoor to the Marty Pushkin Invitational this past Saturday. And to be able to go up with that measuring stick against the Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 athletes and be able to say you held your own as a team, and then a lot of these individuals that we mentioned earlier in the segment, this is a good, I like to say measuring stick. I know that that's a cliche a lot of people use, sometimes use it wrongly, but I like to say that this is a good measuring stick to see where this program is, not just among other Division 3 teams, but Division 2 and Division 1 athletes as well, and I think they really held their own.
So kind of following up with that measuring stick, as you just mentioned, and kind of going off of Benny's question, do you see this meet as a foundation builder primarily? We know what the Jacob Harkers are able to do. We know what the Quentin Weavers are able to do. We know what the Meg Berries are capable of doing, Ella Rochelle. The list goes on. We know what they're capable of and the amount of talent they bring to this team. But primarily for all athletes, do you see this more as a foundation builder to see, all right, here's where the season can go. How can I raise the bar from there? Or do you also kind of see it as something else?
I think in every sport, your first meet, your first event, your first game, whatever it may be, that's sort of a foundation builder. It's sort of, okay, we're into game action now, we're into event action now, let's see where we're at. For track and field, it's a little bit different because we talked about the indoor, and from indoor to outdoor, it's the shortest off season of really any sport we talk about here. So that may be a little bit different, but I still think that the start of a season, it's always a bit of a foundation. It's let's see where we're at now that we're in game action, event action. Practice is one thing. You can try to simulate events. You can try to simulate, actual races or actual throws, actual jumps, this and that. But to actually get into an event and actually get into competition and see the results, that's always a good foundation. It's somewhere to build up, because you obviously want your best to be at the end of the season, not the beginning of the season. This is a good place to see where are we going to build up? Where is this team going to build up? Where are these athletes going to build up individually? And where are they going to build up together as a unit?
So that's going to wrap up our talk in terms of track and field. Now, don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to be talking about softball with Seth Adams. So don't go anywhere. Welcome in to Jacket Sports Weekly. We just talked women's and men's track and field. Now it's time to talk softball. We got Seth Adams on the desk. So starting off with you, Seth, Penn State Greater Allegheny Waynesburg played over on Tuesday last week. Was a very dominant sweep with a combined 33 runs in the sweep. Who were some key contributors in the non-conference game?
I mentioned it last week, and I want to mention it again. The pitchers have just done such a great job, especially in this game. I targeted that last game against Penn State Greater Allegheny should be kind of like a JV game, kind of experiment with some players, and they delivered. I mean, Presley Meadows, she only had 3 hits. She only let up 1 run. Madison Baker, she only let up 3 hits and no runs. So the pitching we saw was just so dominant, and, like, of course, the bats as well. Everyone contributed to the bats. I mean, you can't just score 19 and 14 runs and have people still kind of on the bench. Everyone contributed to this game. It was a pretty easy game for them, and it showed with, like you said, 33 runs in their favor, only giving up 1 in that doubleheader.
So we talked about what went right. Now, this last game, or the last doubleheader, first PAC competition of the year, let's talk about maybe what didn't go right, because things uncharacteristically for Waynesburg didn't go as planned. The pitching was a little off. The bats were a little slow. Defensively wasn't as sound as they usually are. What to you went wrong in this doubleheader, especially a big one, an important one, to start PAC play of the year?
Sydney Wilson was just not on her best game we've seen these last couple of years. She kind of struggled a bit. I mean, the score was 6-1 after 3 innings. She is now 6-1 on the year. That was her first loss, and it's a pretty tough one, if that, especially against a PAC opponent first week. They lost the first game 7-5, and then they lost the second game 7-4. So the pitching just really wasn't there from both sides. Autumn Stemple started the second game, and we didn't see a lot of good from her either. But in that first game, another key I want to highlight is Madison Baker came in during the 4th inning. The score was 6-1. She only let up 1 more run after that. So props to her. Like I said earlier in the show, earlier in the weeks, you want to get your pitching established because sometimes they're not going to have the best games. And then Madison Baker came in, gave them a chance, but it didn't end up going in their favor. Bases loaded, it was the bottom of the 7th. They grounded to a double play. That was your chance to kind of maybe get back into it. Alyssa Rager had 2 RBIs in that one. Grace Henkins 3 for 3, and she had an RBI. But in that second game, like I said, Stemple was on the mound. They lost that one 7-4, and now Stemple is now 5-2 on the year. But Waynesburg was in the lead till the 5th inning. They were up 2-1. It was kind of a comfortable first couple of innings. The mound was solid, but then Allen on W&J, she is just so solid. She had an 2 RBI double. Stemple was actually pulled for Wilson. A couple of walks later, a couple of singles later, things just got out of hand. It became 5-2 after 5 innings, and Waynesburg just couldn't catch up and let this one slip between their fingers.
So some rare occurrences early on in their first President's Athletic Conference matchup, but we're now 17 games into the new season. Can you spot any differences from just a year ago, kind of maybe in the positives, could be negatives as well? Because you mentioned some people just thrown off their game. Was the first President's Athletic Conference matchup of the year, but any differences that kind of stick out to you?
Well, I know I mentioned that the pitching struggled a little bit against WJ, but this team is still first in the PAC in ERA, having a 2.13. So they have the components. They're third in the PAC in batting average, around a 3. What do I have it, like a 3? They're above 300. They're pretty high, and I think 384 around there. So they're solid in all those components. It's just that I think they just struggled against WJ. The pitching wasn't 100% there. Had to get a replacement. Usually those two go the full game.
Yeah.
So, and we see them get pulled pretty early. So I think it was just an off day for them. I think they bounced back, especially against Allegheny coming up. The pitching, like I said, still at top of the conference, 2.13 ERA. That doesn't just happen for no reason. This team is solid all around. They have 2 of them batting over 500 on the team. So 50% of the time you got someone getting ahead.
So would you say just some more added depth from a year ago? Just some not much needed, but just some added pieces that could contribute?
And think, these have been the 2 main, for all last year these were the 2 main. And now people are starting to figure them out a little bit. You're watching film, you're studying them, and you're seeing their pitching rotation and see how they do things. They're going to catch on after a while. Sure, there have been aces for a while, but maybe shake it up a little bit, and then things will change throughout the conference play.
So kind of digging off of what Benicio just brought up, I mean, there's a new head coach in town for the softball team as well there with Chris Brunson. He's following Brett Shimmick, who, in case you weren't aware, Brett Shimmick in 6 seasons with Waynesburg, went to 3 PAC championships, won 2 PAC titles in that reign, And then as well, you mentioned the 17-game part. I mean, right now, Waynesburg 13-4 in their first 17 games. Last year, 12-5. So a game above where they were just a year ago. Who else are maybe some offensively been some of those, whether they're seniors, whether they're freshmen, women who have been contributing here early on to that very, very well put batting average, team batting average overall?
Well, I mentioned them before. Mesa Heitman, she's a freshman. She's been doing really well. She's above 500. But Grace Higgins, I swear every time I check a box score, she's either 3 for 4, 3 for 3. She is just so consistent. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. She has a 5.74 ERA. That's the second highest batting average in the PAC, which is still impressive that someone has a higher batting average than her. I mean, she's almost on every single time. But Mesa Heitman, she has 6 triples, and the team itself has 12. So she's contributing to she's tallying bases, and she's contributing to the extra base hits that we've seen throughout the whole season so far. But Grace Higgins, she's your contact. She's getting on base and she's getting it done, while Mesa Heitman is coming in with her triples and doubles and a couple of home runs on the year so far. So this team is, they have these 2 main bats, but everyone else still contributes with an above 300 batting average. They're still all there, but it's mainly these 2, in my opinion.
So we talked about Penn State, Greater Allegheny, and then also Washington and Jefferson. So looking forward now to Allegheny, should we expect differently than the first matchup versus Washington and Jefferson, kind of what we've been used to?
This is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be a lot like Dub J. Allegheny's coming off a 6-game winning streak right now. They are hot. They've only allowed up 8 runs in the last 8 games. So they're averaging only 1 run a game giving up. So it's pretty impressive what this team has done so far. They're 9-7. They might seem like, oh, whatever. Like when we look at last week, Dub J was around like 7-6, and they swept Waynesburg. So I'd say the records right now don't really show.
You got to keep in mind also the North Carolina trip that they were just on. So most of those teams were non-conference. Sometimes even Division II schools. Just kind of getting the girls out there and just getting used to some of your new teammates and stuff like that. So they came back, and like you mentioned, 6-game winning streak. Riding hot.
Yeah, and like the baseball team, they went and played some of the top-ranked teams, or sometimes you play some of the worst teams around the country. It really just depends. So once we get into conference play, I see the teams are really going to show who they are. But this Allegheny team, they have 2 pitchers in the top 10 in the ERA in the conference. So we're going to see those 2, Madison Holtz and Elaine. Excuse me if I mispronounced this. Bellardinelli, sorry if I mispronounced, I definitely did. But those 2 have been the really true aces of the team, and they are going to carry the team, and they got to get ready for that, because those are the 2 they're going to go against, and Waynesburg Bats just got to step it up a little bit.
Seth, thank you as always for giving us your insight on the softball team and what's coming up next. But don't go anywhere, because when you come back after this quick commercial break, we'll be meeting with another fellow to talk about some of the diamond on the men's side for baseball with Dean Shazer. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back in for the final segment on today's episode of JSW. Now we're sitting down with 3 Italian men on the panel to talk about America's favorite pastime of baseball, specifically Waynesburg. Now, the start this year, Dean, has not been ideal, especially to last. Bit of a rough start, especially in conference play against Allegheny, giving up 26 runs before even scoring their own in that doubleheader. So my question to you there, what we've all been talking about, I'm kind of curious, where do you think the problem lies primarily? The bats or the pitching?
It's everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. This team is bottom 4 in on-base percentage, bottom 4 in average overall, the bottom 4 in fielding percentage. They have the worst ERA in the PAC by over 2. That ERA is at 10.08. The team, it's second to last, has a 7.96 ERA. 207 hits allowed on the mound. That is the most by 40 hits in the conference. Last in home runs allowed, they've allowed 13. Last in opponents' batting average, they've allowed the most earned runs by 28. They've allowed 77 extra base hits, over 4 extra base hits a game. and they're bottom 4 in errors. I guess something we could give to them is the catching. Aiden Williams and Seth Bergdahl have been phenomenal behind the plate. They are two of the best two of the top statistical hitters in the President's Athletic Conference as catchers and on your team. If your best hitters on your team are catchers, mind you, guys who have to go to work the most, they have to put in the most amount of work. The definition of work, the catchers have to do the most. They're in a full squat all game, yet Seth Bergdahl is hitting .347 with 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, and Aiden Williams is batting right around .430 with about 30 at-bats. So the problem lies everywhere. It's in and out. It's coaching. It's culture. And that was the first thing I mentioned. This team, the culture has gotten lost. They have lost 10 out of the last 11 games. There are absolutely no positives right now. You just have to put your bat in your hands, rest it on your shoulder, swing the bat, field the ball, and play the way that you know how to play baseball. And once you do that, things will start coming together. Put the bad stuff in the past, because 4-14, you can't have that linger over in the President's Athletic Conference play. The last 3 games, like you said, 26-0 before they put up a run in that Allegheny series. Are we serious? The game before that, 15-4 to Pitt Bradford. They lost 5 in a row before the 1 win against Pitt Greensburg. Mind you, they had a lead in the 11-10 loss at Pitt Greensburg, and that's where it really went downhill. You win a game 26-15 or something like that, and then you go ahead and lose 2 hours later, 11-10. So the problem lies everywhere, and there's no sugarcoating. As much sugar as you want to put on, it's not going to coat it. It's you got to face the problems, and you got to face it now, and that's how you become a better baseball team, and that's how you get out of this slump.
So looking at the series versus Pitt Bradford, they lost the first matchup 2-1. Going into the second matchup, 15-4. What were the biggest differences from game 1 to game 2?
Pitching. It's right there on the stat sheet. It's pitching. 2 runs to 15. I mean, and I know it's hard to say, but this team has some of the least amount of strikeouts. This team pitches. They put their pitches in play the most. So the team's pitching for contact, but when you can't field correctly, when you're bottom 4 in errors in your conference, it's just things aren't going to work out too well. And that's straight up what it is. And obviously not enough run support either. 5 runs in 2 games, and we've seen this over the course. Allegheny, they get up to an 11-0 lead in game 2. Obviously, they're going to not want to pitch their top guys, which is why you then put up 7 runs, and that's why it spikes. So this team just has to fundamentally take a check and just play baseball. Play baseball how you know how to play baseball. Because I know they're frustrated. You don't want to be a 4-14 team 18 games in, especially 2 games into PAC play. You don't want that to happen. So you just, and when you have coaches leaving who've been here for 4 years, middle of the season, 5th year graduate students leaving, they came back to play baseball. They quit the team. It's everything. Everything just needs to, you got to get it together. However many team meetings you need to have. You need to trust each other. You guys are all friends. You guys hang out all the time. Check one another. Give your guys this confidence. We got this. We got this. Pick each other up. That's what baseball is about. Even though it is the most individualistic team sport, it's a team sport at the end of the day.
So you alluded to a few of the positives going on. I know you said really there's no overall positives here. Individually, there are some others. Can you help name some others? I know Alec Engelmore has had a pretty good year on the bats, despite a little bit of a slump in the Allegheny doubleheader. Towards the end, from innings 7 to 9 in game 2 of Allegheny, Waynesburg started to pick things up a little too late in the game, but they started to get bats rolling. They started playing well mentally. What else maybe, or is there anything else you can think of that can add to it that they've done and just implement more maybe in their game style?
Yeah, just like I said, the catchers have been your main focal point. Seth Bergdahl, Aiden Williams, I already mentioned their stats. They've been hitting the laces off the ball. And Alec Engelmore, I know you mentioned him. He had a little bit of elbow soreness coming back from that Florida trip. But in Williams, he had some tightness in his hamstrings, or his hips rather. It was his hips. I got him mixed up with Garrett Comer, who's still battling an ongoing hamstring injury. But he's going to end up being all right. It was just a grade 1 injury. So get the guys healthy, and I know there still are lingering injuries and just guys hurting from that trip overall. It's, 10 games in 4 days. You're going to have some guys that are sore. But the catchers, they've thrown out 9 guys combined, Williams and Bergdahl, and then just the pitching, like it's just got to ramp back up. You have guys here and there, Scabelli and Pinkovich, that have had solid outings, and then you have other guys who just aren't getting it done. Like we have ERAs spiking over 14 when you look on the stat sheet. Guys with infinite whip on the stat sheet. I don't even know how that's achievable, and it's not knocks on them because errors are a part of it, but when you put a guy into a game when they're down 10-0 and there's runners in scoring position, that doesn't give your pitcher a whole lot of confidence, and it just strains them. So you got to let them know, like when you go out there, hey, we're already down 10-0, so try getting out of this situation, and don't let it take a toll on your mental game.
So I think I already know your answer here, but lots of distractions off the field.
Right.
Would you say this is a direct correlation to kind of their play and just where they are right now as a whole?
I mean, it almost has to be, right? Like, what would you? We played team sports our whole lives, and when things are going outside of the locker room that are out of your control, ultimately as a team, it bugs you, and it ultimately defeats the team's morale. And like, I don't know, help me out here. What do you think? Like overall, the team.
Well, first of all, when things are going great, everyone loves each other.
Exactly.
But these times right here, you find out who your real
and then you start
leaders
pointing
are.
Fingers.
That's what I think. You either start pointing fingers, or you find out who the real leaders of this team is going to be. Who's going to rally the guys together? You talked about they're all friends on this team. Who's going to be the vocal leader, and who's going to lead by example?
Right, and that's what it comes down to. If first-year head coach, it's just changes.
Which is very hard, which I was going to mention. It's very hard to not only build a trust with your guys in just a year, but with such things going bad, you don't necessarily even have that trust with the coach yet. You're going to have to rally on your guys.
I mean, you nailed it. That pretty much wraps everything here. Just you got to trust each other. I know I'm just a guy on a stand saying stuff, and I'm not actually playing on the field, but play as a team, play hard, keep your heads down, trust one another, and trust your coaches. I know a lot of bad things have gone awry. Trust each other, and things will be okay.
Well, that has wrapped up our baseball discussion with Dean Shazer. Thanks for coming on. Now, baseball, they have a game or a match versus Franciscan the day that this is being put out, and then they have La Roche, a makeup game the following day on Wednesday. So that has wrapped up our the episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. But for all things WCTV, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. Thank you.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.